Welcome to the lesson for H2-11. This one is on parent equations for non-functions. And the non-function we're going to focus on today is a circle. Now, a circle does have a graphing form, right? We have this equation, x minus h squared plus the y minus k squared is going to equal r squared. Okay, but we call this a non-function because, remember, any function is defined as a relation in which each input has exactly one output. And in this case, right, if you think about a circle, right, you've got like your top half of your circle, and then you've got your bottom half of your circle. So if we took an input value, let's just say like -2, right, we have a point up here that has -2 comma something, and then I also have a second point down here, -2 comma something. So in this case, we have one single input that has more than one output. So therefore, by definition, this is not a function. Okay, but we still have a graphing form of the equation, and we can still use that to help us draw and create graphs of circles. Okay, now this equation will look a lot like our parent graphs that we've been working with in terms of we have h's and k's in there with our x's and y's. But in this one, we also have the r value in there. So what we need to pay attention to is h comma k is our locator point. And for a circle, that locator point is going to be the center of the circle. Okay, so we have that x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r, which right is going to be our radius length, and that is going to be squared. So remember, r is our radius. Let's go ahead and look at some problems and see how all this works. So example 1, we've got a circle. You'll see here, in case your papers didn't print real well, right? We have our y-axis here, we have our x-axis here, and they're asking us what is the center of the circle. Generally, everybody's able to come up with that there, right? But just remember, we're like bisecting our circle horizontally and vertically so that we can see where that center point is. It's going to be this point right here in the middle, right? So we could say that that point is the point 3, 1, right? And remember, that's like our locator point. So that's like our h and k. Then the next question asks how long the radius is. Remember, the radius is just that distance from the center of the circle to the outer edge. So in this case, we can see that that's going to be 3. So we've got 3 units there. And now they ask, what is the equation of the circle? So for us to write out our equation, we are going to use that formula, x minus h quantity squared plus y minus k quantity squared equals our radius length squared. And now we're just going to take it and we're going to substitute our h value in, and then we're going to substitute our k value in, and then we will actually go through and put in our radius value. So this is what it should end up looking like. We should have x minus 3 quantity squared plus y minus 1 quantity squared is going to equal 3 squared. And you can even take that 3 squared and square it to get x minus 3 squared plus that y minus 1 squared is going to equal 9. Either of these two forms would be acceptable. Okay, let's move on to the next one. Example 2 says, what is the center of this circle? Again, if you can bisect it, you'll see here we've got this line here. It looks like it runs right on the x-axis. And then if we bisect our circle going this way, run through, we'll see our center of our circle is right here at that point -2, 0. If we look at what is our radius length, that looks like we're going to go 4 units, right, to get from the center to the edge of the circle. So we've got 4 units. And then once again, we're just going to take it and we're going to plug everything into that formula. So I'm going to write it down again. The more you write it down here at the beginning, I think the easier it will be for you to remember it. And let's just substitute in our h and our k and our r. So we've got x minus, and then I'm going to put in that -2 squared plus y minus, looks like we're going to put in 0 squared, and then that should equal 4 squared. And let's just take the time to clean it up. X minus -2 is going to be the same thing as x plus 2 squared. If I do y minus 0, I'm going to say that's just y, so plus y squared is going to equal 16. And there is the equation of that circle. Example 3. Use the information about the circle to write its equation in graphing form. So now they're just giving us the information instead of us looking at the graph to find it. So for the first one, it says a circle with center at 5, -6, and a radius of 7. Right? We know that this is going to be h and k, and that r is equal to 7. So if you want to pause the video here and go ahead and try it, you can try the next one, and then you can fast forward through and make sure that you have it correct. That is totally fine with me. Remember, you have the ability to control the pacing of this lesson, so whatever you need to do, go ahead and do it. All right, so if I'm going to do x minus my h, which would be x minus 5, then I'm going to add to it y minus -6, right, would be like y plus 6 squared is going to equal our 7 squared, which is going to be 49. Then it says for the next one, a circle with center at -2, 0 and a radius of 9. So again, if you need to pause it and do it so you can check it, please do that. When I take this one here, I'm going to say x minus -2, so that'd be like x plus 2. I'm going to square it, plus y minus 0 squared, and if you want to leave that in there, that's totally fine. It's going to equal the radius of 9, so remember we're going to have 9 squared because it's r squared, so 9 squared is going to give us 81. Okay, and remember that y minus 0 could be just y squared if you choose to write it that way. Example 4, given the equation of a circle, state the coordinates of its center point and the length of its radius. So for the first one on this page, x plus 4 quantity squared plus y minus 1 quantity squared equals 25. Our h and k values will be -4, +1. And then to get our r value, right, we're going to take the square root of this number over here. Square root of 25 is going to be 5. So our radius of that circle would be 5 units. For the next one, x minus 3 quantity squared plus y minus 4 quantity squared equals 100. Our center of our circle should be 3, 4. And then to get our radius, right, we're just taking the square root of this term. So square root of 100 should be 10. And the very last one on example 4 says x plus 7 quantity squared plus y plus 6 quantity squared equals 90. So again, for our locator point at the center of the circle, we will actually have -7, -6. And then to find our radius, right, we know that r squared equals 90. So we're going to take the square root of each side, and we're going to get that r is going to equal whatever the square root of 90 is. And so if we need to do that real quick, that would be 9 times 10, which is like the square root of 9 times the square root of 10, or 3 radical 10. So then I'll just write that down. Our radius is 3 radical 10. All right, if there's questions about any of these ones, make sure you mark them and ask in class. Let's move on to the next one. So now it says to rewrite the equation of a circle in graphing form by completing the square. Then state the coordinates of its center point and the length of its radius. So with this one, we are trying to change this equation into this form x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. So it's very similar to when we were completing the square with parabolas, right? We got to get that perfect square trinomial that will factor into this binomial squared. And then we also have to do it a second time for that one. So first thing I'm going to do, just like we did when we were completing the square before, is I'm going to get rid of my constant terms. I'm going to go ahead and just subtract 17 from each side. I now have x squared plus y squared plus 12x minus 8y is going to equal negative 3. All right, now let's take the time here to set this up. All right, I'm going to put my x terms together, and I'm going to put my y terms together, and then look to complete the square. So I'm going to go ahead and just open a parenthesis and say x squared plus 12x. I'm going to say plus blank. And then I have plus y squared minus 8y plus blank. And we know that that should equal negative 3. And remember, if I add a blank here and a blank here, I need to add those same two blanks on the other side. So I'm going to say negative 3 plus blank plus blank. And now your favorite part, let's go ahead and complete the square. So if I take my b term and I cut it in half, that's 6, and I square it, I get 36. So we can add that to each side. If I take negative 8 and I cut it in half, I have negative 4, but when I square negative 4, I get positive 16. So we'll add that to each side. Okay, so now our equation is still balanced. Remember, the whole reason we are completing the square is because we want this to be a perfect square trinomial, and we wanted this to be a perfect square trinomial. Now we can factor. So x squared plus 12x plus 36 should factor into x plus 6 quantity squared plus, on the next one, y squared minus 8y plus 16, we should have y minus 4 quantity squared. And then that should equal negative 3 plus 36 plus 16. So when we take those and we add those together, I believe that should end up equaling 49. And now we're able to find the coordinates of its center point and the length of its radius. So down below, we'll say our center point is going to end up being negative 6, positive 4. And then our radius, we're going to have to take the square root of 49, which should give us 7. All right, so if you have questions about that one, please make sure you reach out and ask. Hopefully that helps. Let's try the next one. It says x squared plus 18y plus y squared equals negative 65. Okay, so as we look at it, right, we don't have any constant terms on the left side. There's no numbers that don't have variables attached. Okay, and then on our other side there, we've got just negative 65 just hanging out. So let's go ahead and rewrite our left side. I'm going to group it as x squared plus, right, because I don't have any other x's, so I'm going to go right into y squared plus 18y. I'm going to group that. And I know right now that that should end up equaling negative 65. Now, if we're looking to complete the square on this, okay, we could think about this x squared. This x squared could be considered, x minus 0 squared. So it's like the completing the square part's already been done for this one. So I'm going to just go ahead and bring down that x squared. For y squared plus 18y, we're going to think of this one as y squared plus 18y plus blank, right? Because we need to complete the square. So we need to figure out what that's going to be. But if we're going to add the blank on the left side, we must also add the blank on the right side. So see if you can figure out what is our value that we need when we have 18y there. I'll take half of it and square it. So half of 18 is 9. 9 squared is 81. So we're going to add that amount to each side. Okay, so how did that help us? Well, now that we have completed the square here, remember this can now be factored, and it's going to turn into y plus 9 squared, and then that should equal, what is that, 16? And before you know it, it looks like we're already here to our equation. So the center point on this one, right? Remember, if it's just x squared, that means it's 0. And then our y-coordinate would be -9. So we have the point 0, -9 is our center. And then our radius is going to be the square root of 16. So our square root of 16 should equal 4. All right, we've got one more. So if you want to pause it and try it, that would be a great idea. If you're just trying to get it over with here and get through it, then just listen along and do the best you can. So again, I'm going to start out with the same methodology. I'm going to add 6.75 to get rid of it. Now I've got x squared plus y squared plus 5x plus 2y is going to equal 56.75. Okay, now let's just organize our work. So I'm going to say x squared plus 5x. And I'm going to go ahead and just put my plus blank in here. And I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to say y squared plus 2y plus blank. And right now that still equals 56.75. But since we've added the two blanks on the left side, I need to add those on the right side as well. So in completing the square, remember we're going to take half that middle number and square it. So this one should be a 6.25, which means this will be a 6.25. Half of 2 is 1. 1 squared is 1, so we'll add 1 there. We'll add 1 right there. Now we can start looking to clean it all up. So when you look here, and when you look here, this is where we should have those perfect square trinomials. This should factor into x plus 2.5 quantity squared. The second part there should factor into y plus 1 quantity squared. And it should all equal, when you take this and you add it all together, 56.75 plus 6.25 would be 7, that'd be what, 63, plus 1 would be 64. And now we can find the coordinates of our center point, which would be -2.5, comma, -1. And our radius would be the square root of 64, which would be 8. Okay, so there are our answers for these ones. Hopefully you had the opportunity to try them. Like I said, it's not a lot of new stuff, but it can appear to be a little bit more confusing. So if you have questions, please make sure you reach out to your teacher. Otherwise, thanks for watching.